The movie opens on a moonless night as an American named David Cooper stumbles toward the Kalindi temple. A beer bottle dangles from his hand. His eyes are wild, his steps unsteady. There is fear in his every breath, because he feels unseen following him. Strange demonic cries echo in the night, and David, unable to control his terror, begins to run. He crashes into the temple doors, pushes them open, and enters the inner sanctum. What he sees inside shakes him to the core. The priest of the temple lies in a horrific state. His body is torn, bloodied, and carved with symbols. The sacred is etched into his chest in what looks like fresh, ritualistic violence. The air reeks of copper and incense. As David fumbles to remove his shoes out of habit or reverence, the priest, half alive and soaked in blood, waves a hand and motions him to stop. The priest declares that God no longer lives in the temple. In one last grotesque act, the priest slices open again. The blood sprays. A horrified David flees the scene. The story shifts. It moves into the bright urban world of Nandita, a successful model known to friends as Nani. She is in love with Yash, a television director and host of a popular reality show called Andhvishwas. The show deals with superstition, hauntings, and paranormal myths. Nani is seated at her makeup table when her phone rings. Yash calls to invite her to a party celebrating a career milestone. Nani accepts the invitation. A friend in the room overhears. The friend expresses concern, voicing skepticism about Yash's intentions. Through their exchange, it becomes clear that Nani and Yash have had an unstable, on and off relationship. Nani tries to downplay the intensity of their bond. She claims they are simply friends. She assures her friend that nothing too serious exists between them, but the friend remains unconvinced. Later at the party, Yash receives recognition for his work. There is applause, flashing cameras, and a buzzing crowd. In his acceptance speech, he thanks many people, yet it is Nani who receives the highest praise. He names her as his most important supporter. The gesture stuns Nani. Her face softens and she smiles. A montage follows. It traces the blooming of their subsequent romance and passionate moments. The two begin to live together. Time passes. Nani becomes pregnant, but she hides this truth from Yash. One evening, Nani encounters a stranger in a mall. He is a young artist named Prithvi. He freezes at the sight of her. His mouth opens slightly, as if in shock. She notices him staring, and feels very uncomfortable. She walks away, confused and disturbed. The truth is, Prithvi had painted her without ever meeting her. 4 months earlier, he created a sketch of a woman he had never met. That woman is Nani, and Prithvi is understandably in a state of shock. After this encounter, Nani's world begins to change. She starts to hallucinate. She sees things that should not be there. Her dreams become violent. Her waking hours are full of strange movements. Meanwhile, Yash turns cold and begins to pull away again. He ignores her needs and wraps himself in his work and pride. The emotional warmth from their recent reunion fades, just as her friend predicted, and Nani is left to bear the weight of her reality alone. When she meets Prithvi again, he begs her for a chance to speak. He explains that he made a sketch of her long before they met. He then shows her a recent painting that emerged as a result of a compelling dream. The painting bore a disturbing image of Nani lying in a pool of blood, her wrists slit, her face peaceful yet lifeless. Prithvi believes it's a premonition, a sign of an impending tragedy. He asks her directly if she believes in ghosts, but Nani panics and leaves. Back in her apartment that evening, Nani's terror peaks. While taking a bath, the lights flicker, the water turns dark, and she feels something grab her under the water. Screaming, she tries to flee, but her wrist is slashed in the process, blood gushing out. Prithvi, who had been watching from a distance, senses that something is wrong and breaks in. He finds her unconscious, the bathtub stained crimson, and without hesitation, rushes her to the hospital. Yash arrives in a panic after learning what happened. The doctor informs him not just of Nani's close call, but also of her miscarriage. The news hits Yash like a hammer. In the hospital ward, he confronts Nani, his eyes blazing with disbelief. She tries to explain that she never meant to hide the pregnancy. She just didn't want to worry him. She swears the wrist slitting was an accident, not an act of despair. Yash, bitter and confused, demands to know what she hoped to prove by harming herself. Nani breaks down, explaining that it wasn't her. Something else was in that bathroom, something dark. Her memories are hazy, but her fear is raw and vivid. As her words falter, she remembers Prithvi, his warnings, his obsession. She begins to suspect him, believing he may have orchestrated the hallucinations, stalked her, and driven her to the edge. She voices this suspicion to Yash. Fueled by rage and panic, Yash uses his influence to have Prithvi arrested. The artist is dragged into custody, but maintains his innocence. During questioning, police find no criminal record, no prior offenses. Instead, they discover that Prithvi was the one who fought a security guard to get to Nani, broke into the apartment to save her, and called for an ambulance. Despite his odd behavior, he had saved her life, not endangered it. Prithvi is eventually released. Meanwhile, David Cooper, owner of a chemical plant, takes his own life. He writes a final message on the wall in his own blood. The words appear in Hindi, reading, "You are impure, you are rotten from inside." After scrawling the message, he hanged himself. The atmosphere around the body feels charged, as if something unseen watches. At a major fashion event, Nani takes the stage. The audience waits, lights blazing, music loud. Hidden among the crowd, Prithvi sneaks into the venue. He manages to bypass security. He watches as Nani begins her walk. Her steps falter. Her expression twists. Something takes hold of her. Before the horrified eyes of the audience, she lashes out and attacks a spiritual guru present at the show. Her voice changes. She speaks the exact words David wrote before his passing. The incident becomes a media spectacle. Yash moves quickly to do damage control. He arranges a public apology. Nani, pale and trembling, sits before the cameras. Yash declares that she suffers from a mental illness. He urges the public to be understanding. An overwhelmed Nani has no choice but to follow Yash's lead. Soon after, the possessions continue. Nani's reality begins to blur. Desperate and terrified, she seeks out Prithvi again. She begs for help, but Prithvi refuses. He has painted her once more. This new image is haunting. It shows Nani hanging from the ceiling, the same words written behind her in red. The painting unsettles him. He believes the future shown might come to pass. He turns away from her. He does not want to get pulled further into the darkness. At a party with Yash, Nani tries to appear normal. The event is loud and full of shallow smiles, but once again, the force returns. Her body stiffens. Blood seeps through her dress. She panics and flees. She bolts into the streets, barefoot, wild-eyed, running through traffic. She heads for a nearby highway. Her mind is no longer her own. She runs as if something calls to her from the dark horizon. Meanwhile, Prithvi experiences a sudden vision of Nani hurting herself. The thought of losing her frightens him. Despite his earlier resolve, he leaves his studio and begins to search. He traces her through the city and finally finds her deep in a slum, where she prepares to end her pain forever. Her eyes are blank and her hands tremble. Prithvi intervenes just in time. He grabs her and holds her as she breaks down. Yash arrives moments later. The two men face off in tense silence. Yash makes an offer. He agrees to help Nani but demands that she cut ties with Prithvi. Nani refuses. She turns away from Yash because she has finally realized that he will always love his fame and wealth more than he loves her. She chooses to stay with Prithvi. Together, they decide to travel to Kalindi. They believe answers lie there, where everything began. That night, Prithvi and Nani find a guest house near Kalindi. Nani is attacked by paranormal beings connected to a nearby forest, but Prithvi saves her. The next day, they reach the Kalindi temple. They meet the priest's wife. She is older, weathered, and carries the weight of a terrible truth. She reveals that her husband was not a holy man, but rather he was cruel, twisted, and dangerous. She states that his passing, though horrific, was no surprise because he had committed unspeakable crimes against innocent people. She concludes by warning them that some forces should not be disturbed. Hoping to understand more, Nani and Prithvi travel to meet the police officer who investigated David's passing. They find him living alone. His house is in a scattered state. The officer appears deeply unstable. His eyes twitch. He mutters to himself. His body is bloodied, and all that remains of his hair are patches. Their visit ends in horror. The officer, overwhelmed and consumed by fear, takes his own life while they are in the house. A gun goes off, and blood pools around his feet. His face is twisted in terror. He leaves behind no answers, only more questions. The curse continues to spread, but they do not know why or how to stop it. One night, as Nani and Prithvi continue their search for the truth, they drive along an isolated road cutting through thick forest. A strange sound ripples through the silence, and without warning, wild animals burst out of the underbrush. They resemble unnaturally large, deformed bulls. The creatures charge at the jeep, slamming into the sides with terrifying force. The vehicle rocks violently, veering off the road. Prithvi tries to regain control, but the jeep crashes into a tree. Amid the chaos, Nani and Prithvi manage to crawl out. Blood trickles from their wounds, but with no time to waste, they flee deeper into the dense woods. As they push through the darkness, guided only by instinct and moonlight, Nani stumbles upon a stone well nestled in a small clearing. It looks ancient and worn by time. Before she can react, an invisible force strikes her. She is thrown into the well, and a horrified Prithvi rushes forward. He sees her vanish into the depths. Without hesitation, he leaps after her, the cold rush of air hitting his skin as he plunges down. Water closes over him, and the silence is deafening. Beneath the surface, time seems suspended. Nani floats in the dark, her limbs heavy. She is pulled between life and the afterlife. A vision unfolds before her. A voice speaks, not with words, but with memory. It reveals itself as Veer Pratap Singh, Prithvi's father. He shows her the truth. Years ago, Veer discovered that the Kalindi chemical plant was dumping toxic waste into a sacred lake. The same lake where thousands came each year to bathe, believing the waters could cleanse their sins. What they received instead was poison. Veer had tried to expose the truth. He reported the plant's crimes, but was threatened by the local policeman and the village priest. Still, he did not back down. He told them they were impure, rotten from within. the very words that echoed through Nani during her possession. But Veer never got to speak publicly. The priest's hired men silenced him. They beat him and dumped his body in the very well Nani now floats in. His soul remained trapped, bound by unfinished justice and grief. Veer's spirit returned to do what he could not achieve in life. The revelation pierces Prithvi's heart. All his life, he believed his father had left him, that Veer chose to disappear without a word. Now that belief crumbles. The weight Prithvi carried all these years lifts. Grief gives way to clarity. Soon a rescue team from the city arrives to take them home. Yash also comes back for Nani. In the following days, Prithvi is still confused as to why Nani was used by his father. The duo tries to work it out, and together they learn that Yash had the evidence of Veer's passing, but sold it to David in return for sponsorship of his show. Nani tries to escape with the evidence of this evil, but Yash catches on quickly and attacks her. Prithvi arrives just in time to help Nani, but is injured by Yash. In the end, Veer's ghost offs Yash and heals Prithvi's wounds. Nani and Prithvi are finally reunited and free.